Okay, so yesterday we looked at decimal place value, and we also looked at what values those numbers would have in a decimal number. So let's just do a quick revision on that. So say we've got the number 564.317. How would we partition that number to write it in expanded form? Joel?
So you could do 500 plus 60 plus 4.
Yeah?
And then 3/10.
Yeah. So we're doing it as fractions first then?
Plus 100
Yeah?
plus 7,000.
Brilliant. Plus 7 thousandths. Okay, so remember you're writing this down, everybody, because it's on the board. Now, if we were going to write it another way, I'll get a different colour so that we can do that. Obviously, your hundreds and tens and units would look the same. But what about the decimal numbers if we wrote them as decimals, not fractions?
0.3.
0.3, well done, plus,
0.0.
well done, 0.01 plus,
0.001.
well done, 0.007, that's right. So, if you look at, there's a relationship between the number of decimal places and the number of zeros in the bottom number of the fraction, yeah? So here we've got 3 zeros, so there are 3 decimal places in that number. Here we've got 2 zeros, so there have to be 2 decimal places in the decimal number. And here we've got 1 0, so there has to be 1 decimal place. And it's a bit like when we did it at the very beginning of the year, when we had like 10 to the power of 6. What was the relationship between the index number and the number that that represents? Well, what is 10 to the power of 6? Who can remember? Yep.
10 times itself 6 times.
Well done. It's 10 times itself 6 times. So 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. Let's just 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. What is that though if we work it out? Where's?
1 million.
A million. Well done. So let's write a million. So now you've got that number written down. What's the relationship between that number and the index number?
It has 6 zeros.
Well done, Bella. Has 6 zeros. So you've got the index number of 6. It's got 6 zeros. Yeah? So what we're going to look at today, though, is multiplying and dividing by powers of 10. So let's go through the powers of 10 first of all. So we've got 10, haven't we? What's the next? So that's 10 to the power of 1, isn't it? What's 10 to the power of 2?
100.
100. What's 10 to the power of 3?
1,000.
1,000. 3 zeros. And what's 10 to the power of 4?
10,000.
10,000. That's right. I'll put my commas in because I'm old-fashioned. So obviously, if we went 10 to the power of 5, it would have 5 zeros, etc., etc. So when we're doing multiplying or dividing by a 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, the really crucial thing is to look at the number of zeros, and that will help you to do the calculation. So let's have a look at something like 3.14 times 10 to the power of 2, or 100. So we'll make it 100. So 3.14 times 100. Now, one of the things to remember is that to make it easy, we say that the decimal point moves, okay? But actually, mathematically, the decimal point does not move. It stays in exactly the same spot. The numbers move, okay? So this number here will go 2 columns across. This number will go 2 columns across, etc. But it's just easier to say, oh, well, we'll move the decimal point. But you've got to remember that the decimal point never moves. So, first things first, you look, we're multiplying. So, by a whole number. So is the answer going to be bigger or smaller than our original?
Bigger.
Bigger, good girl. So, which way do you think we're going to move the decimal point? I know we're not moving the decimal point, but we are to make it easy. Chelsea? Good girl, we're going to go this way. So, you look at the number of zeros, there are 2. Okay? So you move the decimal point 2 places. 1, 2. So it's there. So now our number is 314.0. But do we need the point 0?
No.
We don't, do we? And actually, in tutoring last night, Jordan and I found out that Mathsverse didn't like us putting it in, didn't it, Jordan? We had, sometimes it let us and then sometimes it didn't. So that isn't incorrect, it's just not necessary. So we can get rid of that. Okay, so our answer is 314. Yeah, everyone with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do a slightly bigger one. 55.641, and we're going to times that by 1,000. So again, we're multiplying by a whole number. If you multiply by a decimal, it actually gets smaller, but when you're multiplying by a whole number, the answer's always bigger. So we're going to move the decimal point. I know we're not really moving the decimal point. I'll stop saying that now because you know. We're going to move it to the right. How many places are we going to move it to the right, and how do you know? Melody?
3 because there's 3 zeros.
Beautiful. 3 because there are 3 zeros. So we'll go 1, 2, 3. And then our number is 55,641. Do we need to put point 0? No, we don't, do we? Okay, so let's have a look at dividing then. Oh no, let's do a kind of a 0.0137, and we're going to multiply that by 100. So I'm going to multiply it, so it's going to get bigger because it's a whole number. 100's a whole number. How many? So the decimal place is going to move to the right. How many places? Penny?
2.
Why?
Because there's 2 zeros.
Well done, because there's 2 zeros. So we're moving the decimal place 2 columns. So 1, 2. So it's going to go there. So our answer is 1.37. Okay? Now, division, exactly the same process, but you just go in a different direction. That's right. So let's have 5,137 divided by 100. Now, this is a whole number, isn't it? So we don't have a decimal point. So where would I put it, Joel?
At the end.
At the end, after the 7. So your decimal point would go there. Because in every whole number, there is a decimal point there, but we just don't write it, do we? Because we don't need to. In this case, we need it because we're going to use it, so we put it in. So, as we said, moving right when we multiply. When we divide, we're going to move left. How many places, Melody?
2.
2. So 1, 2, there's your decimal point, 51.37. Okay, who's understanding? Give me some thumbs. Fantastic. Okay. Right then, so I'm going to just put a couple up on the board. Few more. It might be a little more tricky because we might have some placeholding zeros. So let's have a look at this. We'll have 1.37 divided by 1,000. Now, a little bit harder this one. Who thinks that they can talk me through what I've got to do? Sophie?
Would it be 1,370?
No, that would be if you were multiplying it. Remember
Oh, it's
when?
going down.
Yes, because you're dividing, so the answer's going to be smaller. Okay? Yeah.
So you could don't move the decimal point, but to make it easy, you got to move the decimal point 3
1,
value place
2, 3. Okay, so it's going to go there.
and then you just put zeros. in
Well
the-
done, that's right. And I'll do them in a different colour. We put the place holding zeros in there. And so our answer is 0.00137. So you have to, it's a good idea to actually do the jumps because it shows you which numbers are missing, doesn't it? Okay, and then you have to put the zeros in, because if we wrote this, what's that number?
0.137.
Yeah, it's not 0.00137, is it? So we have to put those placeholding zeros in. Okay? Do you want to do another one like that with some placeholding zeros, just to make sure that you know how to do it? Okay, so we'll have 0.0545 divided by 100. So, who can talk me through that one? Go on then, Joel.
Okay, so there's 2 zeros in the 100.
Well done.
You're dividing it, so you have to move the decimal place, theoretically, 2 places to the left.
1, 2. Very good.
And then you add placeholding zeros.
Yeah, well, we've got a 0 there already, haven't we, that we don't need to add, so we just add the 1. So our answer is 0.000545. Okay? And Joel, you'll like this one. That is actually 5.45 times 10 to the negative 1, 2, 3, 4 times 10 to the negative 4. You'll like that, okay? Right, okay, can you press stop for me?